What if I told you that if you worked more, you could be happier? What if I told you that this might be true for you, but might not be true for everybody? And what if I told you that I can give you the key to figuring out how to spend your time and why? That's what I'll be doing in this video. Hey guys, it's Tony, and today I want to talk to you about a huge shift that I made in my life recently. I want to talk about the impact it's had, and how and why you should make this change too. It's a move from cutting up your time without basing it on some underlying principle, to something that I call value-based time allocation, and I'm going to explain it for you. Not that long ago, I gave up on what is traditionally called work-life balance. And what I'm talking about is this sort of blind limitation of how many hours you work per week to something like 40. I call it blind because it isn't really based on anything. It's a way to divide up your time that just takes as a given that 40 hours is enough, and you should work no more. I used to operate this way, but there's an issue with this approach. I want to tell you about my own story, my PhD, the first few years of it, and how I've changed things as I've gone along. When I first started my PhD, it was the middle of COVID, and I felt isolated and on my own, and disconnected from my program in a lot of ways. I couldn't find motivation to do my work a lot of the time, and I would get it done, but without any real energy, without any real engagement with what I was doing. To make it worse, the first project that I worked on ended up going very wrong, at a stage which, to my mind, was already pretty advanced. And, as a result, I was set back several months at least. And during this time, I found that I was minimizing work, making it a smaller part of my life, doing things like clocking out in the evening, regardless of what was done and what wasn't. And, most importantly, regardless of what I wanted. I was designing things in large part not based on what I wanted out of my work, but out of a sort of negative reaction to it. And so it wasn't about what I wanted, but what I wanted less of. It brought with it a lot of the things that you can imagine keeping my evenings and weekends to myself means. I was reading, I spent more time cooking, but there was still something missing. What was missing was a constructive reason for spending my time the way I was spending it. I was doing things out of negative motivation, trying to avoid, rather than doing things out of positive motivation, trying to move toward things that I wanted. It wasn't this way in my whole life. I was doing things that I enjoyed, that I valued, and I made time for them. But when it came to work, I let a sort of lessening mindset set in. And at the heart of this, I felt like my work controlled me in some way. If I didn't have time to prepare myself for careers outside of academia, that's the way it had to be, because I didn't have time within my workday. If I couldn't participate in clubs or other activities because my work took up that space, then I was out of luck. And so this lessening attitude came to hem me in, to restrict what I thought was possible. I came to see this only slowly, and it came to me because of some classes I was in, and because of a book I was reading at the time. The classes provided me with this idea. Rather than think of life as a strict balance between time spent on work and time not spent on work, treat your life as a portfolio, a group of activities that you engage in because they mean something to you. And the book was Finite and Infinite Games by James P. Carse. The idea is simple, but the book and the implications are profound. Everything we engage in is either a finite or an infinite game. Finite games are played to win. Infinite games are played in order to keep them going. One thing that's helped me realize is that I was playing the PhD as if it were an infinite game. What I wanted to do was to learn for the sake of learning and to keep the game going. But the issue is that academia is an industry, and it requires you to be productive and for your output to be, in some sense, better than that of others. There are winners and losers, and so it's a finite game. So this led me to realize that I should be playing the PhD as a finite game, which meant that there was something I wanted out of it. There was some goal I had for it, other than just to play. Check out the book. I've linked it in the description. It's a short and a good read. And so the key shift in mindset that I experienced was this. You shouldn't be arbitrarily limiting the number of hours spent on one part of your life versus those spent on another part. In everything you do, you should be doing it because you're spending time on the things that matter to you. What this means is that balance isn't always about symmetry, and that if you're blindly seeking work-life balance, you likely aren't finding any balance at all. But let me tell you what I'm not saying, so that what I am saying can be made clear. This approach doesn't mean that you work all the time, and it certainly doesn't mean that you should give up time with people that mean the most to you in order to give it to other pursuits. It also doesn't mean that you can spend all of your time on passion projects or hobbies. And it doesn't mean these things because it means that if you value something, you should spend time on it. The reason you can't spend all your time on hobbies is because they likely aren't making you money. I'm assuming, of course, that you value money, even if it's a little bit, enough to live. And if you value spending time with the people closest to you, there's no need to give that up to do other things. However, if you're at a point in your life where what you value most will come at the end of a lot of work, maybe you do work all the time. And so what I'm saying here is that you don't start with time and then sort of slot activities into the time available. Instead, you start with values. Decide what activities are going to help you live your values, and then give time to those activities. For me, this meant putting a whole lot more time into things that look like work, because at this point in my life, there are career and related goals that mean a whole lot. But for you, it might look different. For me, my downtime is limited. And that's because I spend the bulk of my time building things that I believe in, working towards goals that matter to me. And for you, time with your children, or time resting your body so that it can be ready for whatever comes, might mean the most. And so you make more time in your schedule for downtime, not less. When you're using value-based time allocation, you don't mechanically subtract or add things to your life. And at the end of the day, you can know that what you're spending your time on matters. What this means then is that before you allocate your time, you need to figure out what is meaningful to you. There are several steps you can take to implement this idea in your life. The first is to work out what your strongest values are. There's some things you'll just know matter to you, but you also might be in a place in your life when you know what you don't want, but you don't know what you do want. And there are different ways of going about finding that out. There are different assessments that can help with this, like the Myers-Briggs or the Strong Interest Inventory. And if you happen to have access, they're very helpful tests. But there are also things like games and card decks, which help you to figure out what matters most to you and what really doesn't. Beyond these methods, there's also introspection. Sometimes, all it takes is sitting down and asking ourselves what we really value, in order to help us get clear on what those things are. I suggest journaling, or talking to a trusted friend, or going somewhere calm, closing your eyes, and picturing yourself as you would ideally be. What do you see? What do you have? How are you? Where are you? And who's there? However you do it, write down what you come to understand about yourself, and then work out what it would take to get you to where you want to go. Here, it's important to be realistic and comprehensive, and to trust yourself. Being realistic means recognizing that you can't achieve every goal in a day, or a month, or a year. And being comprehensive means that you look at a reasonably fine grain at everything that needs to be done to get you there. Check out my video on using motivations to set goals and objectives to help you get there. I'll link it in the description. And trusting and believing in yourself means not throwing out ideas just because you think you can't do it. The truth is, you can do much more than you think you can, especially if your idea of what you can do is based only on what you've already done. You are capable of many, many things. And if you can't do something right now, you can start smaller and work up to the bigger thing that you want to be capable of. As my wife likes to say, you already have the no, so why not go for the yes? Next, you lay out your plan. Schedule everything that matters to you in week or 2-week segments, and leave flexibility for contingencies if you can. And whatever your goals, leave time to rest and recover. And finally, start doing the thing. And when you do start, remember, you can only do one task at a time. You can't learn a language in a day, nor can you become a 1 million subscriber YouTuber in a month. But when you break these larger goals into smaller objectives, and then attack each objective one after the other, you'll be on your way to the goal, without feeling like you have to climb the mountain all at once. When we live based on what means the most to us, we give ourselves the chance to thrive and to end up getting to where we want to be. What this means for you will be different from what it means to me. But we can each find meaning and live lives more like the ones we want. If you found this helpful, leave a like or a comment, and we'll see you in the next one.